Hello and welcome back, everybody. It's Yesham Nicholson from Yes Career Coaching, and this is another episode of Your Big Career Move. And today I'm talking to John Williams, but I know that on social media he goes as John Spencer Williams. And I'm always excited to speak to all my podcast guests, but I'm extra excited today because I have been following, stalking, but in a non-creepy way, John for a little while now, and he puts out some amazing content. A lot of it is for free, and I don't know, I find him very inspiring, and I'm sure you will too. And he has this fabulous story to tell about how he left his job in a big corporate to do his own thing and follow his passion. So without further ado, thanks so much, John, for being here today. I appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
And if we could go straight into what you were doing, I know you had what people would call a very successful career in corporate. Can we start with that?
I did 10 years as a software developer, and those are in small companies, startups, really. And I enjoyed that. And then I ended up in an internet consultancy, it was a startup incubator. And then I got this chance to move to Deloitte, and our whole team at the startup incubator were kind of acqui-hired almost into Deloitte to start a new service line, doing consulting around broadcast technology and broadcast strategy and stuff for TV broadcasters in the UK and elsewhere. And I debated whether to join because I had another offer. The BBC wanted to hire me on an independent basis. And I took it in the end. I thought, well, this will look good on my CV. And, I don't know, it'll be interesting because I'll be I'll be a senior managing consultant. But I think pretty much on day one, I realized I've made a terrible mistake. And partly they'd done a little bait and switch because they knew we'd come from the startup world. So we were used to kind of hip, informal kind of cultures. And they interviewed us in like the coolest building they've got. And then day one, they said, oh yeah, turn up at this other building. And it looked like a kind of mausoleum. It was just like with like marble walls. And you went inside, it was the most depressing, looked like 1980s open plan office, just like the local council or something. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
What have I done?
Yeah. And after a year, I said, okay, I've got to get out of here. And I didn't really, some of my friends have been inside big consultancies in EY, KPMG, and Deloitte, and they love it, and it really suits them. So I don't want to kind of make out that like, there must be something wrong with you if you like Deloitte. For the right person, it's a great fit. And I was sitting next to people for whom it was their dream to be partner. And they would ask me in the review, every 6 months or whatever, when do you want to be partner? Well, they asked me, I think I only had one review before I left. And I said, I don't. And they just like, wait, what? They don't know what to do because your entire process is like, how do we stage you on the path to being, whether you're going to make it or not, it's beside the point. But like, when I said I don't want to be partner, they just went like, well, we don't know what to do now. And I didn't want to be partner because you work terribly hard at something I didn't have any kind of, it wasn't my passion. There was one of the things I was being pushed to do was to help MTV save like God knows how many millions in tax. And I thought, I don't want to help MTV save tax. It just like, because we were doing a technology project. They said, we can wrap in this tax angle and then you'll win the project. And I thought like, I don't feel like that's my mission on earth to help a giant corporation pay less tax into the British tax system. So anyway, I said I wanted to leave, and after some arguing, they allowed me to kind of go away. And I walked out with a plan to go and consult, doing similar consulting but independently. And the plan was like my daily rate at Deloitte was £3,000 a day, but that's what Deloitte charged. And I didn't get paid that, although did get paid very well. And I thought, well, if I can just charge 600 quid a day, I'll be making twice what I got paid with my salary and all my benefits. So then I can take half my time off, because it's what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I went out there and went to win my first project, and I actually managed to get paid very quickly £1,100 a day, which is 4 times what I was effectively making per day in Deloitte.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant I only need to work 3 months of the year. And I did some really interesting projects. So I was a specialist in managing large video projects, and I helped to write a request for proposal for the BBC for £1 million system, and helped Siemens to buy part of the BBC, to buy what was BBC technology. And so there were some quite interesting things going on.
John, I'm just going to interrupt you there for 1 second, because you're making it sound far too easy.
I did. I forgot the transition bit. So the transition bit.
Everybody that's listening, that's going, well, that sounds pretty straightforward.
So I can do
that.
Yeah. So if we just fit in a little detail on and then I went to watch the BBC. That bit was, I decided I wanted to work for the BBC, and I talk about this in the book, F Work, Let's Play. And I decided I wanted to work with BBC for a number of different reasons. And I found in life that if you've got at least 3 reasons for something, it's normally a good decision. Normally turns out well. And one was, I thought it looked really good on my CV to have the BBC. It's one of the best known brands in the world. Secondly, I'd always dreamed of working in the BBC as a child, because whereas other people dreamed of being an actor or an actress or something, I dreamed of being a cameraman or something and doing something geeky. So I wanted to be at BBC TV Centre. And thirdly, we'd been selling software into the BBC. I'd met loads of people. They're all lovely. And they were doing really interesting projects as well. So they were doing quite cutting edge stuff there. So for all those reasons, I thought, I am going to be laser focused on getting a gig at the BBC as an independent consultant. And what I did was I then ran a campaign around that. And this is what I advocate. If you want to do something that feels like a stretch, laser focus on it. Don't do what everybody else does. You say, well, I'll take whatever I can get, and you spray your focus everywhere. I just called everybody I knew at the BBC. I called everybody I knew who sold software into the BBC, called everyone who'd ever consulted to the BBC. I read Broadcast Magazine, which is the trade magazine, and I read the section about technology projects, and I cold called or cold emailed the people who said, who were mentioned saying such and such is leading a project to do something with online video. And
so is this while you were still at Deloitte?
And I started that while I was,
you left?
No, I started that while I was still at Deloitte, and I'd made my commitment to leave, at least personally, in my own head. And before I'd even told them I was going to quit. So I just went right at it. And then when they said, okay, you can leave, because I was trying to negotiate to get paid my notice period rather than having to work it. And that would give me a little bit of buffer. And then basically I'd quit my job, and I, was been out for a few weeks, had no money coming in, and nothing had happened. So I've thrown everything at this, and nothing had happened.
So what's happening in your head at this point, where you've jacked it all in, you've got this big dream and nothing's happening? What's going on in your head at this point?
I don't know. I was asleep at the point they phoned, and I was in bed because I'm not a very early riser, and they phoned me at like 9 o'clock or something. Who's that? And he said, it's we're calling from BBC Broadcast, as it used to be called, and wondering if you could come for an interview today. And I went, yeah. So I went for an interview, and they said, can you start Monday? And that was how the first project was helping to write this proposal for a giant software system to manage all the digital assets, all the video that pumps out of the broadcast center at the BBC. It's now called Red Bee or something like that. It's privatized. So, and I got that project. That was the first project. And I also got one with Siemens shortly after that, I think. So, yeah, I mean, there's a weird part of me, because I'm quite an anxious, neurotic person, but there's a weird part of me which just decides like, F it, I'm not giving in. I'm just like, I'm going to do this even if it kills me. I'd rather like be, risk homelessness than go back into a job. And for some reason, even though I don't consider myself a particularly brave person, occasionally that part of me kicks in, and it paid off, fortunately. And I was sending all these messages. I was getting people going, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I think we might be able to use you at some point. So it wasn't like I was getting like a complete, tumbleweed response from the market. That's a bad sign, because this is what I help people to do: start a business from scratch, even if it's like a consulting business. So if you're getting like complete silence, people go like, no, like, why would we ever use you? And that's obviously a bad sign, and it may not pay off. So I felt that it was going to happen, probably just whether I run out of money and default on the mortgage before it did. And unfortunately, I didn't. So that worked for a while, and then I also took the chance while I was doing that to do psychotherapy training. So I was on a training course for psychotherapists, which is brilliant particularly with the first year of it. I stayed on that for a few years because it wasn't much, didn't take many days after the first year. I also did coach training the year after that. So I became a qualified life coach. And then I was still doing stand-up comedy. So the point I quit Deloitte, before I quit Deloitte, I enrolled myself on a stand-up comedy course. And it's 12 weeks, and you practice in a London comedy club with an experienced comic, and you write material and you perform it. And on the last day, you invite all your friends on a Saturday night, and you do 5 minutes of material. And hopefully,
is that just because you fancied? I read somewhere years ago that all men have this secret desire to be a stand-up comedian. I don't know if that's true.
That's interesting.
But is it something that you just always fancied doing, or?
Well, I think I pride myself on my sense of humor. I think I like to think I'm funny. And I think after a while, I grew up with terrible, terrible self-esteem. And after like the 100th person said you're funny, and said maybe you should do something funny, write funny or whatever. And I've written a couple of articles. I'd written one for the Reader's Digest, which I've been paid for, about having a brain scan. So I had a brain scan, and it just ended up being this sort of comedy fiasco. And I don't know, I have this kind of gallows sense of humor, which comes from some, childhood trauma probably, but it's left me with this very dark sense of humor that I enjoy inflicting on other people. So I wrote this piece for the Reader's Digest about getting my brain scanned, and because I'm claustrophobic, I went and asked the scan chief, as I called her, the radiologist, before, and I said, what can I do? She goes, well, I recommend you have a beer or two. And she says, just don't get so drunk but you fall off a table. And I went, okay, excellent. I said, these sound like excellent medical advice that I could comply with. And then there's this moment I put in the article where I'm walking down the South Bank in London, or towards St. Thomas's Hospital for this brain scan, drinking a can of Stella on the street. And suddenly I see my endocrinologist walking towards me. So I'm having a scan because my pituitary gland doesn't work. My endocrinologist walking towards me, this man who's ever going, are you keeping up with your diet and all this kind of stuff? And I'm walking, looking like a wandering drunk. And I'm going like, what am I going to say to him? And I said, fortunately, the last moment, he pretended not to recognize me. So it was a very English response that we just like, pretended we hadn't seen each other, even though we walked right past. So it was kind of that vibe. And I thought, okay, that's fun, but actually, it turns out writing funny and performing funny are two very different things. So it took me a long time to come up with material that made people laugh out loud. So that was my challenge with stand-up comedy. But I really think it helped me to escape Deloitte, because it was just like, sometimes you just need to do something. Sometimes you just need to do something random and insane. And shift the energy, it sounds a bit woo-woo, to kind of just shake yourself up a bit. A friend of mine said, she joined a choir. She was trying to decide what to do with her career. She joined a choir and just loved it. and something about that. And once you're in the flow and you're doing something you really enjoy, that's challenging, exciting, then the prospect of like emailing 100 people at the BBC doesn't seem, you know, compared to getting up on stage at a stand-up comedy club, it's not that big a deal.
It's no big deal at all. And I couldn't agree more with you. And that's my advice to my clients as well, is if it's always spending time with the same people and the same environment, reading the same sort of books or watching the same crap on Netflix or whatever, then your brain is not wired to think differently at all. You know, it needs different stimulation. You need to be doing something completely different for your brain, because people get stuck. And then they think, I don't actually know what I'm passionate about anymore. I don't know what I enjoy anymore. And it's like, well, that's because you've been doing the same old thing with the same
and that
old
happens a
people
lot,
for so
right?
long.
So there's because I was a career coach at the beginning, and now I help people market themselves and create a successful business around their skills. So it's evolved. But in that process, from I'm not happy with my job, I want to start my own thing, there's a bunch of phases which are very distinct. And one of them is, I don't know what I want to do. And it's huge, right? So if anyone's thinking like, I want to work for myself, but I don't know what I want to do, just know that you're not in a small category there. There's a huge number of people like that. And there's a phase even before that, because there's a phase of like, I need to work out what I want to do. There's a phase before that, which is I need to know what I feel. Because if you are not connected to your feelings and to your body, it's very difficult to know, it's very difficult to make decisions. And there's a huge number of people in that category.
Yeah.
It's more common in men than women. It's not exclusive to one or the other, but it's much more common. I was like that when I was up until I was 30 years old, and I started psychotherapy and some other stuff. But yeah, look, there's a lot of men walking around who sort of, as a friend of mine describes it, they consider their body to be a brain taxi. So all it's doing is it's carrying their head, their skull around with the brain in it, which really matters. And they don't think about their body, and they don't treat it well, and they're not connected to it. So then when you go like, well, do you think you'd like doing this? They go like, they've got no data to go on, because all the data comes from below the, below the skull, unfortunately. That's where your feelings and sensations are and instincts are. Yeah.
And we're not very good at that. We have switched off what's actually going on inside, and we're so externally focused, aren't we? But yeah, it's reconnecting with that inner voice and switching off all the other noise, isn't it?
And you have to know that you can't. The other thing, and I write about this in the book, you can't work out what you want to do with your life just by sitting and thinking about it, because it'll only get you so far. And so the problem is, because at school we've been taught that, like, if you can't crack a problem, just think a bit longer. That works for maths problems and for chess problems, but it doesn't work for life decisions. So the only thing that works when you're trying to make decisions is experiential learning. So you've got to try stuff out. You've got to, I've got a concept in the book of a play project. So if you think, I for a while I thought, well, maybe I want to be a stand-up comic. And what I did was I did that course. I did 5 gigs, and it went quite well. One of them, at least one, I completely died, but they're mostly okay. And I thought, I think I could have a shot at this. I don't think I'm a natural, amazing talent. But you see these people like Eddie Izzard or Chris Rock or someone. Who they just seem to have this incredible spark from the beginning. But I think I could do something. And I was at standing in this comedy club in the early 2001 or something. People were still allowed to smoke in pubs, right? So it was smoky upstairs. It's horrible. And I thought, do I want to do 2 gigs a night, every night of every week, for no money, until I start getting paid £30 petrol money, in the hope that I'm going to become a stand-up comic? And then I'm performing the same material every night, which I don't want to do, because I like the spontaneity of making things up. And I went, well, I don't want it enough. And even if I could get it, I don't want to perform the same comedy routine every night. That doesn't excite me. So
have you found a way of incorporating this desire to, I don't know, is it a desire to make people laugh or to share your funny stories? Have you managed to
I think
incorporate
so.
that in your day-to-day life anyway?
Yeah, because I think it comes up with clients, it comes up in interviews, it comes up in my talks I give, it comes out in my writing to a certain extent. So I feel satisfied. I mean, I occasionally think maybe I could go and do a routine or something, but I think I would be more tempted to craft like a talk that's related to my current business, but make it really funny. And so it wouldn't be a straight stand-up routine, but it would be somewhere in between the two, and that might be fun. But otherwise, I don't feel like I've lost some part of myself. I feel like it's very satisfied just from moment to moment, really.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've had quite a varied and I guess what's the word I'm looking for? It's been an interesting career today, hasn't it? It's been it's been a wiggly career, let's say.
Yes.
Who's been part of your support network?
I think that's a big thing. I think I've got a huge number of people who have supported me along the way, and I've had coaches, that I've paid for. I've got friends. I'm a fan of therapy. I've been in psychotherapy for like 20 something years. I've been in a men's group for 18 years.
Wow.
Same men's group. And I've done all sorts of, I've done retreats. I've been in masterminds. And I also know that whatever happened now, I've got such a big network that, if I got sued, I mean, I could probably find somebody to help. A couple of my friends are lawyers, but I could probably find somebody who could help me. Whatever it is I can think of, whatever it is I think I need, I know there's someone I can phone straight away. But it is a huge thing, because people think it's all about you doing it on your own, but it's not really. You look at all successful entrepreneurs, they're not doing it on their own. They all have networks like that. And I know if I have a health problem, I've explored all sorts of natural health stuff. And I know, like, if I put my back out, I know who I'm going to phone. If, I was diagnosed with something horrible, I know who I'd phone. So that makes a huge amount of difference to life.
And how deliberate have you been about creating the network? Or has it just happened organically?
I think, early on, I was trying to get over a somewhat unhappy childhood. So I was asking for recommendations for therapists and complementary health practitioners, doctors and stuff. And so I explicitly went out to look for that. But people tell me I'm really well connected now, but I know lots of people particularly in the sort of, I know lots of writers, I know lots of nonfiction writers, and I know, lots of people in the business coaching world, which is what I'm in. But that I don't go out and schmooze people deliberately like that. I kind of just talk to people I find interesting who, you said you were stalking me and you found what I was doing interesting. So then we've arranged to do this. That's just the way I do things. And then, because I've been doing it a long time, I effectively started this business more or less in 2005. So I've met a lot of people along the way, met some of my heroes. One or two of those didn't turn out too well, but
it's always the way though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Best not to meet them.
Yeah. And then, and some of them become friends and collaborators and all sorts of stuff.
So to anybody that's listening, I mean, would you, and they feel like they don't have a network that's supporting them. I speak to a lot of people who have been in really successful careers, but actually they're surrounded by people like them. So people who
Yeah.
are in the corporate world, who that's all they've ever known. And stepping away from that is, is just never going to happen for many, many reasons. But if somebody's listening to this and they're like, actually, I do want to leave, I do want to do something else, I've got this passion to do something else, but I don't feel like I've got the network for that, what would your advice be?
I would do a play project that builds your network. So when
I explain what a play project is? I know what you mean, because like you said,
so
I'm your
this is
number
what
one
I
stalker,
talk about in Secret 3 of F-World Let's Play. And a play project is something you do because you want to do it. That's going to be the first thing. You just want to do it, even if it gives you nothing at the end, nothing practical. And the project should produce something. It should produce value for others. It's not just about it's not you building your website for a future business, because that's bullshit. It's not you Googling, researching, which is really just Googling reasons why something won't work. It's you doing the thing and connecting with people and then seeing what happens. And so the example I had was I was interested in the concept of scanners. So a scanner is somebody, it's a term from a US author called Barbara Sher.
It's a Barbara Sher, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah. So I became, I got to know Barbara.
Oh, amazing. I think has she passed away now?
She has, sadly, yeah. So in 2020, I think, she was in her 80s. I think
she was amazing.
She was, great. And I went on her Scanners retreat in Greece at one point.
Fantastic. So she was one of your heroes that remained a hero. She didn't let you down.
We did have a bit of a falling out, but anyway,
we won't go there then.
She was quite quite a difficult person to get on with, but in some ways, but she was great at what she did. And she anyway, this concept of scanners is very interesting. So a scanner is somebody who's got lots of ideas, lots of interests, loves starting things, not very good at finishing things, loves learning for the sake of learning, but they get bored really easy. So you start learning, I got into Japanese grammar. I found it absolutely fascinating.
Amazing.
And then I went, okay, I'm done. And then never touched it again. I went to Japan and I spoke, Japanese while I was there. Then I went I want to learn counseling now. And then I did counseling at evening class. And then, all sorts of other things. So, at the moment I'm interested in AI and I'm kind of absorbing stuff about AI. And so we have we cycle through these interests, and other people will call us, a dilettante or a jack of all trades. But in actual fact, scanners, I think, are particularly suited to the modern world. And if you operate successfully, and I had a disagreement with Barbara about what that involves, but if you actually want to live a meaningful life, and particularly if you want to earn a living, you need to follow through on things to the point where you produce value, and then that's how you can get paid. And so you need to actually, you need to put things out into the world, for instance. And because I was interested in this topic, I put a notice on Barbara's bulletin board, or whatever it was called back then, in 2000. Actually, I think it was 2007, and said, who wants to meet up in London and talk about being a scanner? And we had 6 people meet up at the ICA bar in London. It's quite a cool bar. And one of them was my friend Liz, who I'd known for a few years. One was a client who I was coaching at the time, I was doing careers coaching. And then there were a bunch of randoms off the internet. And so we met and we just talked about being a scanner. We talked about our ideas and how we handled all our interests and all that kind of stuff. And in the end, this guy said, okay, then when's the next one? I went what? And he goes well, let's do it again. I went okay, all right. So I just picked some random date and we did it again. And then at some point I thought, well, maybe I'll do this properly. And as soon as I had that thought, somebody said, hey, do you want this person to come and speak at your event? Because at that point, I think I'd started calling it Scanners Night. It was called Scanners Night. And they said, I'm a friend of Jürgen Wolf, and he's a former Hollywood scriptwriter. He's written multiple books about the creative process. He can come and talk about how to be creative. And I went, that's brilliant. I love it. And then somebody else said, hey, I've got this really cool venue. It's a room above a bar. It's like, it's really futuristic. You can use it for free. I went like, yeah, great.
Awesome.
So we had a venue, we had Jürgen and everyone had a drink and listened to him and did exercises and chatted. And then we, did it every month, and I started charging for it, and it made, $1,000 a month or whatever. And what that did in the process is that I met Jürgen, I've met all sorts of people who've gone on to be collaborators, who become friends. I featured in the book. So some of the people in the book spoke at Scanners Night. I met my agent, Jacqueline, who's also a friend now. We've done 3 books together. I met a girlfriend once there. We went out for a couple of years. So I did build a network, but I had no plan. Certainly back then I was too disorganized to actually plan anything. But that effectively built my network. So a podcast does a similar thing.
Yeah.
You can choose any kind of project you want. And, if you say to, like, for instance, if I was to start an AI, if I wanted to get into AI more, if I wanted to say to like somebody who's really famous in AI, Mo Gawdat, right? He just brought a book out. He was at Google. And I said, hey, Mo, do you want to go for a coffee? You go like, who are you? But if I say like, hey, I'm doing a podcast of bringing AI to the masses and allowing people to understand, can you spare 30 minutes to do a podcast? Yeah. I'm gonna 50-50 chance he'll say yes.
Yeah.
And then like now I've got Mo Gawdat's phone number, right?
Yeah.
And then like, so when I did a podcast. Now I'm saying this is theoretical. I haven't actually. I was listening to his book this morning, which is why I was thinking of it. But I do have I did that with my own podcast. When this book came out, when F-Work Let's Play came out, I went back to Dan Pink and Nir Eyal, who've written amazing non-fiction books, business books, Derek Sivers, and others. And they gave me these amazing blurbs, which are in the book, and Brilliant. They're on the Amazon page. And he was like, if I'd asked them off the cuff, they probably would have gone, well, who are you? So in that sense, so I recommend you choose a project that's going to build your network, but one that will be fun. So if your project, you've got the point of a play project is you would do it even if it brought you nothing.
Yeah.
Because you just go like, I just want to do this.
It's just fun.
Yeah. And I write you, funnily enough, because I'm thinking of doing a live event around AI, and I'm trying to decide. And I've got ChatGPT to coach me on it. This is an AI, of course. Cool. And I said, should I do this? And it goes, oh no, I said, should I charge for it, or can I make money out of it? It was answering all the same stuff I tell clients, right? But when I'm working on their ideas with them. And one of the things it said is, what you should do is don't do it to make money. Do it because you want to do it and because you believe that everyone needs to know about AI. And consequently, whatever the word is, ironically, that will actually probably make you a more successful event and makes you more money. I went, that's exactly what I tell clients. So ChatGPT.
I have such mixed, conflicting views of AI. Part of me is like, oh my god, it's amazing, how cool. And then the other half is it's bloody scary because it is going to replace so many things.
It is, it is scary. And I think, Sam Altman, who basically created it, who's the co-founder of OpenAI, he says he is scared. And he's creating it. So
he's creating a monster.
Part of it is just the speed of change, because if a whole bunch of people lose their job overnight, then it's difficult for the job market to then start producing other jobs. Over time that will probably work out, but if it happens too fast, it will be bad news.
I think for me it's more that it could be used for, evil might be a strong word, but that's kind of what
it absolutely will be. It absolutely will be. Yeah, unfortunately.
I think there are many good things that come out of it, but equally quite scary things actually. Anyway, I'm already looking for a desert island to buy.
Unfortunately, the billionaires have already bought them. Peter Thiel's, a lot of them have done that. It was alarmingly.
Right. Well, I don't blame them. If I was a billionaire, I'd be doing the same. But maybe I just need to befriend one of them. but live
Yeah,
somewhere where
yeah,
there's no internet and we just go back to basics. I think there
yeah.
might be something like that in future, that we just turn our back on everything technology, but who knows. Going back to you and your journey, nowadays, what's your definition of success?
Well, I'm writing a book that has the word success in it at the moment, and I'm working on a proposal for it. And I just submitted it to my agent this morning. And I found this quote. In fact, ChatGPT gave me this quote, I think, which was, who was it? Oh, it was Maya Angelou, which is success is doing what you like, with who you like, when you like, or something like that. For me, that's a big part of it. However, I also like money and fame. So, I'm not one of these sort of, egoless gurus who pretends not to care about that. I like money, and I like what it gives you, and I quite like being, very slightly famous. And so I think you need both. I think you need the doing what you love in the way you like, and the real measure of success is that you're providing value to the world. And that usually means, almost always, there's a way to monetize that. So, if you're completely happy writing songs endlessly all day and every day, and everybody hates them, I don't think that's the same as you writing songs and practicing and watching what people respond to and going like, oh yeah, okay, and changing what you're doing, and then ending up with this fan base who loves what you do. I think that's more meaningful, personally.
I like that. And to anybody that's listening, that's thinking, I'd really like to make a career change, what would your advice be? I know you could probably talk for about 3 days on this.
Well, in terms of changing, I talk in the book about breaking the rules and customized jobs. So, creating a new job from scratch. Because the last 3 jobs I had before I left Deloitte and declared I never wanted a job ever again, were custom made. So one was a combination of 2 jobs at a software company. One was custom made at Deloitte with 5 of us creating a whole new service line. And then the one before that, I was at the incubator I worked at, and they kind of made that job for me. And so that's what I suggest you do. Think outside the box. Be willing to do play projects that get you noticed. Like if you want to get into a particular field, run something. Be the person who runs the event, runs a networking event, creates the successful podcast, whatever it might be, or shadow somebody who's doing that and go and just help them. And so step out of that world where everybody else is competing, looking at listings on job sites, sending covering letters, unplug from that world and just go off piste and create your own world by, doing things you want to do and taking ownership of them. Scanners Night could have led to, or running Scanners Night could have led to an event, a career in events for me. I had no idea what I was doing. It's completely incompetent. But by the end of it, I can tell you how to run an event really easily in London. I mean, it would take me a while, but I could download that 6 years of learning and exactly the pricing tricks and the how to get people to bring friends and all this kind. I can tell you every single part of that. So
are you still running those events? Have you stopped that?
No, I don't run that anymore because I felt like it had just run its course, and I wanted to focus on the rest of the business of I was running group programs, so I wanted to focus on running a successful group program and use the time and headspace for that. But I'm debating, whether to do one around AI, because I think it would be fun. It's not in any way related to my business, really, but
well, let me know if you do. I'd be keen to join. If you suddenly you wake up tomorrow morning and you've got, I don't know, 100 billion pounds in your bank account, how much would your life change?
I think so. That's the test, really. You know, I talk about getting paid to play. Get paid to play is doing the things you would do in some form, even if you didn't need the money. And what I would be doing is I'd be writing, I'd be reading books, I'd be having interesting conversations with people, I'd be helping people with their ideas, and I'd probably have a bit more time for like fun, creative projects, for my own play projects. I'd have more time for that. And so the way I work to people might change. I might work with a smaller number of people, have a much more, like currently people pay for like 6 months of coaching and they pay a set cost. I would probably do something where I go, okay, I part own the business and you don't pay for my time, but I'm willing to take a punt for you're going to succeed. And we just hang out as much as we need till we got this thing really cooking. And but I'd essentially be doing.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, and I don't know. So I'm doing all of that already in some form, but I'd be doing I'd probably be taking it a bit easier. To be honest, I'm a bit lazy, so I'm not one of these people who can't. Well, who's sort of incredibly driven to just work relentlessly. That's not me. But I am driven to create and to keep creating.
Well, what I do love is, we said this just before I hit record, that you know you're in Mexico 1 minute, and then the next minute you were in Thailand, and I think for a lot of people that's a really enviable lifestyle.
Yeah, I really recommend not doing that, because it only today do I feel like I've recovered from the trip, because I was in Mexico for a month, which is fine, and that was like they're 5 hours behind, and then I came back for 2 weeks, readjusted to GMT, and then went to Thailand. It's 8 hours ahead. And when I came back from Thailand, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I mean, just even yesterday, I thought, like, am I terminally ill? Is there something wrong with me? I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. And today I finally feel like, oh, it's actually starting to turn around now. I feel like
Is that just from the jet lag, John? Or
I think it's jet lag and and also, you know, it's a 15-hour journey. I was in economy class, and I went like, I've got to like start traveling business class. I got to make this business the business does well, but I got to make enough money that I can afford to blow $5,000 on a business class seat, because I ain't doing this again. So it was just that it completely exhausted me. But the traveling is great fun, and I spend a month to 2 months out of the country. In winter, because I hate the British winter. It just drags on forever.
Yep, I couldn't agree more with you. And as we're recording this, it's raining cats and dogs outside, and somebody's forgotten to tell somebody out there that it's meant to be spring.
Yeah.
I forgot to share that. Anyway, I realize I've taken up quite a lot of your time. I've really enjoyed chatting to you, and I think a lot of the things that you shared today are going to be really, really going to resonate with people, and I think hopefully will make people take action. So thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks, John.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me. And people can find out about the book on Amazon if you look for F Word Let's Play.
Yes, I have my copy here. And I mean, genuinely, I'm not just saying this, but I always have a pencil when I'm reading a non-fiction book, and because I like to underline and make notes and whatever. And very genuinely, this book has got lots of underlined bits. It's a great book. It's really easy to read, and you give lots of real examples in it as well. I really enjoy it. So
thank you.
If anybody's looking for a book recommendation, I really recommend it. It's F Work Let's Play by John Williams, and I think it's available. Well, I think I bought mine on Amazon. I'm sure it's available at most. In fact, didn't I see it was a bestseller at WH Smith's?
It was non-fiction book of the month at WH Smith's, and it was the business book of the month, or the opposite way around. And it was a couple of weeks ago. It was in the top 10 business books in WH Smith, in train stations and airports. And if people want to find me, just look for John Spencer Williams. I'm on LinkedIn, and I post every day on LinkedIn. So find me there. Send a message if you've listened and enjoyed it. Happy to say hello.
I'll include all your contact details in the show notes as well.
Yeah,
So
cool.
if anybody wants to connect with you, they'll be able
Yeah.
to do that. So
Okay.
thanks again, John.
Cool. All right. Thank you.